morning and welcome to the VSA Morning Miner. It's Wednesday, the 26th of February, and I'm joined by Paul Rankin. Paul, how are you?
Pretty good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks. Paul, there's not too much uh, news out this morning, but maybe we will start with a little comment on the Ukraine minerals deal. How do you think Ukraine have fared on that?
I think anything at all which brings more certainty that they can get financial support and political support, essentially in the negotiation period as they go with Russia, as well as anything like minerals, which would require follow-on investment and policy support for the export to get the economy back on track post-war. It would be good for Ukraine. The actual terms of the deal, we would otherwise have to see the paperwork on in order to see just how um, restrictive it might be on Ukraine as far as being able to do third-party deals with other powers and that sort of thing. But it is progress, just the same.
Well, I think it looks like a pretty bad deal for the US. I think they probably could have, for all of the lack of exploration that's been done in Ukraine, you could probably buy from listed companies far more advanced projects with the amount of money that the US are looking to spend, and get much more comfort from anywhere in the rest of the world. I don't think Ukraine is quite as advanced as Donald Trump seems to think it is.
I think you're probably right on that too, but I think there's also the political factors perhaps outweigh the economic ones as far as the materials are concerned.
All right. A couple of bits of news out of London this morning. Let's start with Anglo Asian. They've given a guidance update.
Yeah, Anglo Asian gave us the full year 2025 guidance for their production there in Azerbaijan. The number now is they'll produce for the full year something less than 33,000 ounces of gold and something less than 6,800 tons copper. Now, that is a really substantial improvement, though, more than double, more or less, what they had produced this past year while they were waiting for permits to be granted so they could complete expansions of the tailings dam and development of the third deposit for them. So this is definitely an up year for them with the start of the new Gilar mine as well. So it's good to see some a target that the public market can otherwise address as far as their progress through the year.
Yeah, meaningful increase. So now to hit it. Um, there's an update from Ariana Resources as well.
Yes, that's right. Ariana gave us a portfolio update on their Asgard Minerals. That's their startup exploration portfolio subsidiary, in which they have several companies backed within that. First off, Palace Resources, they completed a major joint venture agreement with Ivanhoe Mines in Kazakhstan, where Ivanhoe will contribute almost $19 million in a first phase and up to $115 million in subsequent phases, which would have 217 kilometers of drilling. That's kilometers of drilling, so that's great news for Palace for sure. Panther Metals in Australia, in which they hold about 4.9%. They um, increased investment in with a placement 125,000 Australian. With the Anamite Resources subsidiary, where they hold 6%, they have new exploration results out on their Sokdi polymetallic and Vangma polymetallic projects. And Altair Resources had completed a high resolution survey on Kokpekti West project, which expanded the project in scope by 50% and identified new targets for additional geophysics.
And there is also an update, Paul, from cleantech lithium ahead of a webinar at 1 p.m. today.
Yes, that's right. They gave us an outline of what they plan as the new timeline for getting their listing on the ASX at this point. Part of that timeline is governed by having to report latest period financial results, which would have to appear in the listing prospectus. So that timeline is to get started again at the end of this calendar quarter and looking for a listing in May as a target date. And they also reported that the CEO designate, Tony Esplin, had chosen not to accept the role. So they will reopen the interview process for a new CEO, and the current interim CEO, Steve Kessler, will continue in this process.
Very good. All right, Paul, thanks very much. We'll be back tomorrow.
Very good. See you then.
This podcast has been produced and edited by VSA Capital. It is intended for information purposes and not as investment advice. The information is intended for recipients who understand the risks associated with equity investments in smaller companies. Please do your own research and do not rely on a single source when making an investment decision. VSA Capital may derive fees from this content and seeks to do business with the companies mentioned.